They bullied the quiet new girl. Then she walked into the Admiral's office. They thought she was weak. They thought she didn't belong. They thought she was just another quiet new recruit who wouldn't last a week. So they laughed. They whispered. They pushed her patience. Until the moment she stood up and calmly walked straight into the Admiral's office. And that's when everyone realized they had bullied the wrong person. Welcome to United War. The arrival. The training base was loud that morning. Boots striking pavement, instructors shouting commands, recruits rushing between drills. Among them was someone new. She didn't speak much, didn't try to impress anyone, didn't try to fit in. She simply followed orders with quiet precision. Her uniform was spotless. Her posture was perfect. Her expression unreadable. But to the louder recruits around her, silence didn't look like discipline. It looked like weakness. The bullies notice. At the edge of the training yard stood 3 recruits known for their arrogance. They were strong, loud, and always competing for attention. One of them smirked as he watched her pass. "Look at her," he whispered to the others. "Doesn't even talk, probably scared of everything." They chuckled. Another stepped forward, blocking her path. "Hey, new girl," he said mockingly. "Lost?" She stopped, looked at him, calm, focused. "No," she answered quietly. Just one word, no emotion, no irritation. The recruits laughed louder. The pressure begins. They circled her slowly, not threatening, just mocking. Maybe she thinks she's special, or maybe she doesn't know where she is, or maybe... One of them leaned closer. She won't last a week. Nearby recruits glanced over, sensing tension, but no one stepped in. On bases like this, people learned quickly. Attention made you a target. She didn't react, didn't argue, didn't defend herself. She simply waited. Something feels different. One recruit watching from a distance frowned slightly. Something about her composure didn't match the situation. Most new recruits would show it. Nervous hands, defensive posture, quick words. She showed none of that. Her breathing stayed steady. Her shoulders stayed relaxed. Her eyes stayed sharp. It was the calm of someone who wasn't intimidated, but evaluating. The moment everything shifts. Finally, one bully laughed and said loudly, "You know what? Maybe you should go complain to the Admiral." The others snickered. They expected embarrassment, maybe anger, maybe silence again. Instead, she nodded once, turned, and started walking. Not away from them, not toward the barracks, but directly toward the command building, where the Admiral's office was located. Cliffhanger ending. The laughter behind her slowly faded as the bullies realized something strange. She wasn't storming off. She wasn't upset. She walked with calm purpose, like someone who had every right to be there. And as she reached the command building doors, one of the recruits whispered nervously, "Wait, why is she going there?" The answer was about to change everything they thought they knew about her. The hallway outside the administrative wing felt different from the rest of the school. The noise of lockers slamming and students laughing faded behind her as the quiet new girl walked forward with calm, measured steps. She didn't rush, she didn't hesitate. It was as if she had walked corridors like this her entire life. Halls where decisions mattered, where people spoke carefully, where rank and respect weren't jokes. Inside the classroom she had just left, whispers were already starting to spread. "Did you see that?" one boy muttered. "She's actually going to the office. No way she lasts 5 minutes." The girls who had mocked her earlier leaned back in their chairs, smug smiles still on their faces. They expected tears. They expected punishment.
They expected the usual story. Quiet kid gets scared, complains, nothing happens. But they didn't know her story. Meanwhile, the girl reached the heavy wooden door marked Administrative Command Office. Most students avoided it like it was a courtroom, but she simply raised her hand and knocked twice, firm, confident, precise. Inside, a deep voice answered, "Enter." She stepped in. The room smelled faintly of polished wood and old paper. Sunlight streamed through the blinds, casting sharp lines across the floor. Behind a wide desk sat a man in a decorated naval uniform, silver hair, posture straight as steel, eyes sharp enough to read a person before they spoke. Admiral Harris, a man whose name alone made teachers stand straighter. The moment he saw her, his expression changed, not to surprise, but recognition. He stood, not halfway, not casually, fully. The kind of rise people reserve for equals or superiors. "Good afternoon," he said calmly. She nodded once. "Good afternoon, sir." No fear, no nervousness, just composure. Outside in the hallway, a secretary who had worked there for 15 years blinked twice. She had never seen the Admiral stand for a student before. Inside the office, the Admiral walked around the desk slowly. His tone softened, but his posture remained formal. "I assume you've already been introduced to the environment." Her eyes didn't show anger, they showed assessment. "Yes, sir, I've observed enough." Another nod. No outrage, no lecture, just quiet acknowledgement. To anyone else, it might have looked like a simple conversation, but to someone trained to read authority, it was clear. This wasn't a student being disciplined. This was a briefing. Back in the classroom, rumors were spreading faster now. Someone claimed they saw the Admiral greet her. Someone else said she wasn't in trouble at all. The bullies laughed it off. Yeah, right, like the Admiral cares about some nobody. But down the hall, inside that office, the Admiral's next words would soon prove just how wrong they were. And when the truth came out, the entire school would realize they hadn't been dealing with a quiet new girl. They had been testing someone far above their rank.
Inside the Admiral's office, the silence carried weight. Not awkward silence, not tense silence. The kind of silence that exists between professionals who already understand more than they say. The Admiral steadied her for a moment, then spoke in a voice low enough that it never needed to be loud to command respect. "They didn't recognize you, did they?" She shook her head once. "No, sir." A faint smile touched the corner of his mouth, not amused, just knowing. That might be for the best. She didn't respond. She simply stood at ease, hands relaxed behind her back, posture straight, gaze steady. It wasn't a pose someone practiced for confidence. It was posture learned from years of discipline, the kind you only get when you've lived under real command structures. The Admiral turned and opened a slim folder on his desk. Inside were documents stamped with official markings most people would never even be allowed to see. He glanced at the top page, then closed it again. "No incidents?" he asked. "Nothing requiring action," she replied calmly. He nodded once. That was all he needed. Outside, the secretary's curiosity was growing. Through the slightly open blinds, she could see just enough to know something unusual was happening. Students didn't stand like that. Students didn't talk like that. And the Admiral definitely didn't look at students the way he was looking at her, with professional acknowledgement. Back inside, he spoke again. "You understand why you're here?" "Yes, sir." "And you're prepared for it?" Her answer came without pause. "I wouldn't have accepted the assignment otherwise." The Admiral's eyes sharpened slightly, not with suspicion, but with approval. He had spent decades evaluating officers, recruits, and specialists. Confidence didn't impress him. Skill didn't impress him. But certainty? Certainty always did. He stepped closer, lowering his voice just a fraction. "Your presence here isn't widely known. Only a handful of people have clearance." "I prefer it that way," she said. "I assumed you would." There was a brief pause. Then he added quietly, "If any situation escalates." She met his gaze. "It won't, sir." not arrogance, assurance. That answer told him everything. He gave a single firm nod. Very well. Then, in a gesture no one in the school had ever seen before, the Admiral stepped back and gestured toward the door, not dismissing her, but allowing her to leave first. A sign of professional respect. She walked to the door, opened it, and stepped into the hallway. The secretary instantly straightened in her chair, pretending to shuffle papers, but she couldn't help glancing up as the girl passed. Their eyes met briefly. The girl gave a polite nod. Nothing intimidating, nothing dramatic. Yet somehow, the secretary felt like she had just been acknowledged by someone important. Inside the classroom, the whispers had turned into bets. Some said she'd been suspended. Others claimed she was crying in the office. A few insisted she'd probably been transferred already. Then, the classroom door opened. She walked in calmly. No tears, no anger, no rush, just quiet composure. The students fell silent one by one as she crossed the room. Even the teacher paused mid-sentence. The bullies watched her carefully now. Their confidence wasn't gone yet, but something small had shifted, because confidence feeds on certainty, and suddenly, they weren't certain anymore. She reached her seat and sat down like nothing unusual had happened. No announcement, no explanation, just silence. But the silence felt different now, heavier, like the room itself was waiting for something it didn't yet understand, and soon, it would. The classroom stayed quiet long after she sat down. Even the teacher seemed distracted now, glancing toward her every few seconds without realizing it. Something invisible had shifted in the room, like the air had changed pressure. The bullies felt it most. They didn't know what had happened in the Admiral's office. They didn't know what had been said, but they did know one thing. She hadn't come back looking defeated. She'd come back looking exactly the same, and somehow that was worse. One of them leaned to another and whispered. What did they say to her? A shrug. No idea. Across the room, she quietly opened her notebook and continued writing as if the day were completely normal. Calm, focused, untouched. That kind of composure unsettled people more than anger ever could. Minutes later, the classroom door opened again. This time, it wasn't quiet. It was the Admiral. Every student instantly straightened. Chairs shifted, papers stilled. Even the teacher stepped aside respectfully. The Admiral didn't look around the room at first. He looked straight at her. Then he addressed the class. "Class, I apologize for the interruption." His tone was formal, official, measured. "But there's something I need to clarify." Now every student paused. He turned slightly, his voice calm but an unmistakable authority. "The student you've recently welcomed," a pause, "is not here by accident." No one moved. No one spoke. Some of the bullies exchanged uneasy glances. The Admiral continued. "She is participating in a specialized academic partnership program, one that involves cooperation with federal leadership training divisions." The words sounded complicated, official, important, but what they meant was clear. She wasn't just a student. She was someone chosen, someone trusted, someone important enough that the Admiral himself had come to explain it. He looked at her again briefly, and in that brief glance was unmistakable respect. Then he faced the class once more. "I expect her presence here to be treated with the same professionalism she has shown all of you." The message wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be, because everyone understood. This wasn't a warning, it was a standard. The Admiral gave a short nod to the teacher and turned toward the door. Before leaving, he added one last sentence without looking back. "That will be all." The door closed. Silence swallowed the room again. But this time, it wasn't curious silence. It was stunned silence. The bullies stared at their desks. No one whispered. No one smirked. The confidence they'd worn earlier had disappeared completely, replaced by something they hadn't expected to feel. Respect. Across the room, she remained exactly as she had been all day. Quiet, focused, unaffected. She didn't look around to see who was staring. She didn't react to the tension. She simply turned a page in her notebook and continued writing. Because she hadn't come there to prove anything. She'd come there to do a job. And the truth the entire room was finally starting to understand, was this. The quietest person in the room
was the one who never needed to be loud to be powerful.